So this tutorial uses my add-on Animation Snapper Pro, and it's a paid for add-on, but before you click off, I genuinely believe this add-on makes these tasks so much easier, and that's exactly why I made this add-on. So please stick around and have a look, and sorry for the show, but I genuinely believe this add-on is something that you will find useful, and I made it so that I personally can use it in our project. So I hope you can find it as useful as I'm finding it literally every day. In this video, I'm going to show you how I use what I call pivot offset snap. So basically you can put the pivot of an object anywhere and snap to it. It doesn't change the pivot of the original object. I'm going to do this little exercise here. So first of all, this is just animated on the object's own pivot there in the middle. So you can see it's just pivot. So that's just a keyframe animation, and then it's going to drop back down. So first it's going to rotate around its own pivot, then it's going to rotate along that edge. It's going to have a little bounce, then it's just going to rotate along that edge. Then this is going to come in and it's going to rotate relative to that. Then it's going to stand up in its corner and it's going to spin. So this is changing the pivot multiple times, but actually if you look at the object pivot never needs to change. That stays the original, and there's no rigging involved here whatsoever. So let's do that. So let's get rid of all the keyframes. So the end result of this is just keyframes. So any of this you don't like. I'm going to keep this bit where I just hand keyed, because that's just hand animation. So I'm going to keep all that, but I am going to delete all the rest of the keyframes. So delete that. Okay. So now we only have this original hand keyed animation, which is just animation. So how do we now rotate along this edge? So I just need a reference object for this. So this can be any object, but just to make it easier, I've got this little thing in here. So if I go into, if I go in edit mode over here and I create helper for element. There we go. Okay. And this just means it's created that helper for me on that element without any keys or animation. Just going to put the animation off for now, and I know this is going to be aligned to this. So if I go now into this, so each of these is going to have a parent, which is the helper itself, and it's going to offset, and this is just to help you a little bit more. So let's take that all the way down there. So I actually want to rotate around there somewhere. And let's come out of it. So now I've got a nice rotate reference point there. So here I want to set a keyframe on that. Okay. So this isn't going to be my new pivot, but like I said, this could be any object. I'm just using my helpers here because they're just easy to create and align to your object. This I want to rotate now. Let's do this over 20 frames. So it's from 90 to 110. I'm going to set a keyframe there. Just make sure I set a keyframe there. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. Let's put this on, rotate it exactly 90 degrees. Okay, now it rotates 90 degrees. And for this, I'm going to choose the key type, the interpolation mode, bounce. So it is going to, if I play that, okay, that's a little bit quick. Let's zoom out there, and I'm just going to make it 20. Let's see what that feels like. Okay, that's all right. Okay, so now we got this bounce animation there on that centered around that pivot over there. And I just want the box to follow that animation. So on the keyframe where it starts, I select this, then I select my box, then I go to Animation Snapper Pro, and I'm going to fill that selection. Then I'm going to create the offset helper. You know, see now this helper is parented to this original snap source, but it's also snapped to the pivot of this. So now this is just going to follow this. And this is then snapped to the pivot of this, of course. And because this was the original source and that the original snapped, it would have auto-filled those for me already. I'm just going to continue and snap it forward. So I'm going to snap it forward with step. Just step it forward. And I can see there my bounce happening. Lovely. And wait until it settles down. I'm just going to do it to the next round number. So we're at 130 over there. So on this box, the pivot never changed. You see the pivot is still there in the middle, but it's just following the animation. It's still just pure keyframes. So let's play that back. So normal animation, rotate around there. Okay. And now I want to pivot along this axis. So this time it's not going to bounce. So this time I'm just going to do a very simple one. Put it in edit mode again to get that edge there. I want it to be completely flat, so I'm just using the one that's close by. Once again, that could be any object. I create a helper for myself. I'm going to select the parent of that helper. I'm going to go along here, and I am, let's put it here. I'm just going to move that down to here, put that off, down to there. Okay. So, okay, now I've got a nice pivot there. Now I'm going to rotate this. So I'm going to set a keyframe for that. And let's do it over. Outside total frames here. Yeah. Let's do that over 20 frames. I'm going to set the key over there. I'm going to set the key over there. Make sure everything is keyed. Then I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. Let's just see if it's a nice round number there. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so then this is going to rotate. I think maybe you should give it a little bit of a gap here. So this one, let's move the animation along a little bit. Let's move it to 40. So it's just like a 10 frames settle. Just so it's a bit of a gap between the two. Okay. Now, with this as my source, so this is going to be my temporary pivot source, basically. This is going to be my snapped. I'm going to go to Animation Snapper Pro. On the first frame of that, I'm going to create a helper. Or first fill the selection, create a helper. And now I can just step it forward. And this time it doesn't bounce, so it's just going to settle down. Let's do it for extra 10 frames. There we go. So that's what we have so far. Keyframe animation, rotate along that edge, rotate along that edge. Okay. But now, of course, we got this little thing coming in. So this little thing is going to come in, and we want it to snap relative to that. So this is, let's see. So let's set a keyframe there. So that starts at 200. So let's set another keyframe there. So now this is going to be my source. This is going to be my snapped. I'm going to create a offset helper. This time I want to see the reference of this. So I'm going to make this 1.1 cube. So I'm going to fill that selection. I'm going to create the offset helper. So this made it a bit bigger so it's clearer to see. See, there's my offset helper. This would have been already filled in now. And now I can just step it forward. And this will follow this. And I'm just going to do it to the next round number, maybe. Oop, that's a bit too far. This started moving, so I just don't want that to happen. So you just basically simply go and delete the keyframes. Okay, so are we going to pick the corner over there, I think? Let's select this edge. Well, let's select the vertex this time. So select that vertex and create another helper for myself and helper for element. Oh, that was a bit big. Let's make this smaller again. So and create a helper. There we go. Okay, so this parent, because it's using the average of those vertices, let's just make this 0. Zero this out. Okay. And then let's look at this side. Let's put it in wireframe mode. Let's move this down here to the ground. Just going to on that pivot over there. No, technically it's rounded there, and you could actually do it there and just move it down with animation, but for this demonstration, I'm not going to bother with that. Okay, so now we got this helper. This could have been any object. Again, I just use these because they're just easier to create and quickly get in your scene and more or less the right location. So now I've got that over there. And now I want to lift this box up, kind of like a little bit more 45 degree. So I'm going to rotate this 45 degrees. Okay, because I know I want to lift it up in this direction. I'm gonna see here. Okay. So I'm gonna set a key, set it in all channels. Yep, set it in all channels. Go here so we can see a little bit what we're doing. So basically it goes over there. I'm gonna give it 10 frames just to settle there, and then I'm gonna lift it up on its corner. So this is gonna be my pivot reference then. Could have been any object. I'm gonna just over 15 frames. Let's just lift it up. Actually, I want to see a bit of a reference for this. So let's undo that. So let's create the offset reference for this now. So this is going to be my source. This is going to be my snapped. Let's make this bigger again. So I'm going to take 1.1 because these boxes are 1 meter. This first, then that. Fill my selection first, and then create my offset helper. Okay, now you can see that is linked to that. So when I animate this, this will follow. So it's a bit more of a visual reference at the same time as being a helper. So got that, we set that key, and then go to 45, bring that up so we can actually see how much it's coming up. And I'm going to set the key again. Okay, so we can see how that is coming up. Okay, so set the key over there. And then I want this box to spin. So this parent of this helper, I'm going to use that. So I'm not going to let it spin yet. I'm going to give it about, yeah, let's give it 5 frames in this case. So I'm going to set a keyframe there. And then I am going to spin it. And here we can see how much. So let's just spin it 180 in this case. And I'm going to set the keyframe again. So you can see now what that box is going to do. You get like almost like a little preview of what the box is going to do. And all we need to do now is we just need to snap it. So with this as my source, now we can go and fill this in, but it should still be filled in here, I think, when we created it. Let's just see if it's still filled in. So it starts at 130. Let's just step it forward. Yeah, it's still filled in. So if any of your snapping is wrong, just come and check, this, if it's still filled in. Okay, so step it forward, and now it's going to start rotating on that axis. Cool. And that's how that is done. So we have the box lifting up, keyframes, going along that axis. Along that axis, this is going to come in, it's going to keep that relationship, and it's going to lift on its corner, and it's going to spin. So all of this without any rigging, purely keyframes. If you don't like any of it, you just come in and delete the keyframes, and you try again. Cool. If this add-on is something that you think you can use, have a look at our website or just on the channel in the description or in the comments. Look for the links where you can find it. Our website is www.mellowwillow.com, and there's information on it there as well. It's available on Gumroad and Superhive. The money we make from this add-on is also to support our personal indie project. So please support us, or just see how it works and then make up your mind. Cool. Thank you very much.